Welcome to the Tourpreneur Podcast. Travel industry veteran Shane Whaley will take you on a journey with fellow tourpreneurs, sharing their tips, ideas, insights, and success stories to inspire you to make your tour business the best it can be. And now, please welcome your host, Shane.
Hello and welcome back to Tourpreneur. This is episode 8. And for those of you who listened to episode 7, we've crashed through pod fade. I'm here and I'm sustained by all the emails that you sent in to me over the last 2 weeks. Really flattered by the response and so happy that many of you are getting inspiration and ideas and motivation through the Tourpreneur podcast. Also, those of you who wrote in saying you want more and can I go to weekly? Well, truth of the matter is, I could probably go to daily with the amount of stories there are out there and the amount of tourpreneurs who are interested in coming on the show. But to go to a weekly show, that's double the work, double the logistics, everything else. So I'm looking into that right now to see if we can make it work. Today, we've got a really cool guest lined up for you. His name is Alan Rust, and he has the super cool title, Chief Experience Officer for American Tour Company. Now, they craft custom experiences. Their mission is all about connecting people to the local story of their community. They offer self-guided tours, walking tours, chauffeur tours. They focus on history, on food, even on cocktails. Okay, they're operational in Nebraska. They've expanded into Iowa, and they started their business on $5,000, and it's self-funded. So we've got an excellent episode lined up for you. Alan's going to take us on his journey of coming from the corporate world of retail to becoming a tourpreneur. So there's plenty for all of us in this one. Join me at the end of the interview and I'll give you my 3 takeaways. There's probably could be about 10 in this one, to be honest, but I'll highlight my 3 and I look forward to sharing those with you. But for now, let's cross over to Alan Rust. Welcome to Tourpreneur, Alan Rust. How are you?
I am doing great. It's great to have a chance to talk to you.
Well, I have to give you special praise, Alan, because when I launched this crazy idea, Tourpreneur, you were one of the very first people to reach out to me and compliment me on what we were doing and say how excited you were to hear future episodes. So I can't tell you how much that really helped me in the early days.
I have definitely enjoyed every episode since then.
Perfect. So your company, I wanted to chat with you today to share your story because I know you've navigated American Tour Company through a couple of brand changes and you also launched operations in a neighboring state. I know you've also had some challenges with local culinary competition in terms of relations. So I'm really keen to kind of dig into these issues, especially because you were telling me that, your brand has also been the first in your market to use OTAs. So we got a lot of stuff to dig into here. So maybe we could start off by you sharing with us, how did this all get started, Alan?
So my entire career had been in corporate retail, and that was a career that I decided to leave because it is pretty volatile at this point. So I wanted to stay in Omaha, Nebraska. So I decided to do a tour company after talking to some friends, which is a common theme amongst tourpreneurs that you've talked to. They encouraged me to kind of take on this idea because as I traveled for my career and as I moved for my career, what I always tried to do was find the cool new restaurants and bars and get to know people in the industry. So I made that into our culinary company, talked to a friend of mine, and he gave me a little support, and we launched it under Discover Omaha. Then we decided that everything we were going to do was going to support local venues. So we only work with local chefs and bar owners. We then had the opportunity, because I had talked to another tour company owner previously. She had Nebraska Tour Company, which did history tours. She didn't want to do that anymore, so she gave us the opportunity to acquire that company, which we did after 6 months of being in business. And I thought that managing 2 brands would be a great thing because we could capture more business. it turned out to be kind of confusing in the market as well as on the back end with Google Ads and other OTAs. So a few months later, we decided to collapse to just Nebraska Tour Company for both our culinary and history tours. It was kind of at the same point that we had inherited 3 excellent history tour hosts when we acquired the company. On the culinary side, instead of me doing the tours, we've added 3 culinary hosts on that side as well. So it was a pretty interesting first year with all the brand changes. First year and a couple months. One other thing we realized is that 44% of our business came from corporate clients. So that became our kind of our focus as we entered 2019, because they're looking for things to do for their team events. So all of those realizations and learnings and many, many more learnings, as you can imagine, we decided to change the name of the company to America Tour Company. And in 2019, we have launched now Iowa Tour Company to partner with Nebraska Tour Company. So we are, like as you said, in neighboring states, we are having our media launch this Saturday.
Oh, wow. Excellent. And what's that look like?
So we have invited media to a local coffee shop in one of the trendy districts in Des Moines. And we are giving away free tours on both history and culinary side to guests that have entered on social media.
Fantastic. So talk me through, there's a lot that you've shared with us. Let's go back to that first year. So first of all, you didn't just wake up one morning and you had a tour company. You had made that decision to change industries. That's also a very brave thing to do. And I respect all of our tourpreneurs who do that. What were your first kind of steps? How did you get started, really?
So originally, my thought was that I would do the tours in my car. And so that was the plan. And I went and talked to all of the industry people, restaurant and bar owners and managers that I knew, talked to them about the concept. I built the website on my own. I use Wix because I had used that before. So that was kind of everything. Then as the website went up, honestly, we found out that in Nebraska, you have to have a livery license if you're going to operate commercial vehicles. So what does that?
Sorry to interrupt. What does that mean exactly? A livery license?
You have to have a commercial license, like a taxi, to drive people if you receive money from them. So that was, and any taxi company, and the one here is pretty challenging. So any taxi company could dispute that, and then you have to go to court. And we just decided that we would upgrade what we were doing on the culinary side and do a VIP service, talk to a local limo company. And they have been great partners with us since the beginning. And so now all of our culinary chauffeured tours are in limos or luxury limo shuttles.
And was that, other than it being an excellent service and offering luxury, was that a way of getting around the livery license, or?
Yes, because we are not the ones operating the vehicles.
Right.
And they have the livery license.
Smart. And I'm just trying to understand the whole thing with livery license. I guess the state want to see insurance and certification and that kind of thing, correct? Is that why they do it, or are they just doing it to make money?
I think the expense wasn't really that prohibitive. Our insurance definitely would have been a lot higher than it is now. And they also are kind of trying to limit the number of companies that are doing commercial services, driving people around.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk us through your first kind of conversations or your approaches to the limo company. What did that look like?
Well, I met with their operations manager and talked with her about our concepts. Had to explain we have no idea how often these are going to be booked, because I guess I didn't mention, we don't pre-schedule tours. One of our unique things compared to competition is we let the guests pick when they want to go, and we will make that happen. So we never know when we're going to get booked, but they have been great partners. They even got up and spoke at our initial press conference when we launched a while ago. So they've been a great partner and very flexible with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so you were running those tours, and then you had the opportunity to buy the history tour. How did that come about exactly?
So I had reached out to that owner before, and it was hard to get a hold of her, but then we did, just a couple months after we started, had a conversation with her. Then it was maybe 4 months later, she contacted me and said she wanted to meet. And she said she was not interested in continuing the history tour company anymore. She had a following. She had a name we were interested in. Back then, I was not able to get our original company on Viator, and she was on Viator. So that was very interesting to us as well. It was harder to get on then. And then,
is that because they were curating, or they just...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then she had a great team of 3 history tour hosts. So it was kind of a lot of good reasons. And so we sat down and talked with her and negotiated out actually a pretty good deal for us to make it all happen. And then we merged them together.
And I have to ask you, I mean, in terms of funding, and you don't have to go into actual specifics because I appreciate it's private unless you want to. I mean, you've started your business up. You've got the, arrangement with the limo company. You're only 6 months into your business, and then you're having to make an acquisition. You're having to make one, but you choose to make an acquisition. How did that look on the funding front?
I will be perfectly honest. We started this whole company on $5,000 and continue to operate, and everything has been self-funded since then.
Congratulations. That's very impressive.
Yeah, it's been a lot of moving parts and trying to make it all work and taking steps when the time was right, but it's definitely turned out very good.
We'll dig into some of this in terms of how you've been able to grow the business for your company. So what would you say is one of the really big differentials between you and, say, your customers? Why do you think America, why do you think your company is growing? So American Tour Company, why you're growing as you have?
Our point of difference between us and competition is, like I said, first of all, the guests get to pick when they want to go.
Yeah.
We don't load people on a bus, and at the time when we say we want to go, we let the guests pick when they want to go. Our service is very personal and customized. I would say 85% of the tours we book are customized in some way to make them special for the guests, whether it's for a certain event or a company event, or we now have the opportunity to do combination tours between history and culinary, which has been pretty popular. Our tour hosts don't just take people to the restaurant and then they go sit over at the bar. Our tour hosts are telling them stories throughout the whole time, even on a culinary. They tell them about the venue when we're visiting there and making sure that everything is happening perfectly for them. So I think it's just really the service and the stories and really connecting with the people that are our guests.
And do you give, or what kind of training do you give to your tour guides? So when you said you inherited 3 through the history company, but others you've had to train. How does that look for America Tour Company?
Yes, so our tour hosts are independent contractors. So technically, we cannot train them. So that's kind of a fine line. And we do independent contractor for the reason of some of them work with other organizations. So if they were working for us, I would not want them to work with other people. So it's better for them. So we have a tour script that we use for both the history side and the culinary side to make sure that we are providing somewhat a consistent tour, I guess, as but they're all putting in their personal stories and personal secret stops of places they think are great in the areas that we're visiting. We have a guidebook that gives them a lot of information and how to handle certain situations so that they know what they're doing. And then each tour host shadows with an existing tour host before they do their first tour.
And then in terms of quality control, how do you because you're obviously selling on this, that you're offering quality to your guests. How do you go about monitoring that?
The tour hosts know that at any point there could be a secret guest in their group, and that's how we find out. So every once in a while I'll plant a friend or somebody who is interested in going, and they report back to me, and I'll be asking them on certain points, like were they wearing their name tag, and just small details like that.
And then what do you do as the leader of the business if you get some feedback that, and of course this it varies in grades, right? From someone who's not wearing a name tag to somebody who was swearing or behaving badly. I mean, what action do you take based upon the feedback that you get?
The tour hosts know that their future bookings are determined by the reported performance we get from tours. So their emails, positive or negative, as well as reviews, will have an impact on what their future tours are. Mm-hmm. And that may mean they just don't get any more. But to be honest, we have not had any issues whatsoever with our tour hosts, and we maintain 5 stars. So
fantastic. Congratulations. I know that's not easy to achieve.
That is true.
A lot of work goes into that. So that if we look at your first 6 months in business, or maybe even the first year in business, what surprised you the most?
I would say the reception on the culinary side from the restaurants. As we've expanded, some of the restaurants have actually not wanted to work with us. And that surprises me, because the way we look at it is we are doing marketing for our local restaurant partners. And we're bringing them guests that our hope is that they will come back and book a reservation for a full meal. But we're bringing them new people, and we still have some people that just don't want to work with us. And we understand that, our table is shorter seating and doesn't have as high of a ticket. But if they look at it as an investment in marketing, which we're actually paying them to do their marketing, they should see it as a benefit. So that's been the biggest surprise.
And when you've broached this with some of those restaurants, what's the response from them been like?
They do not like the low ticket on a table, and I think they're thinking of it from the server standpoint. But we do tip the server, and the guests. So our culinary tours include 3 food tastings at 3 stops, and we buy the very first cocktail. So we encourage guests to order more at the other 2 stops as far as cocktails if they want. But I still feel like it's a really great way for those venues to get exposure.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking with my sales hat on, how you convince them, because obviously they are holding their position, you have yours. I don't know if there are any stats out there from any of the various organizations in terms of how many people come back. Maybe there's someone listening to Tourpreneur today that runs a food tour in New York City or somewhere and says, oh yeah, actually, 20% of our guys go back to that restaurant. I don't know. I'm just surmising, but it'd be great if that data would be out there, because I do understand what the restaurant is saying. And I also totally understand, as a tourist myself, that's the kind of thing exactly I would do. You go and have, an appetizer at a restaurant, hear the history, and then say, oh, I'm coming back here tomorrow. Did you see that steak?
Right.
Or did you see the dessert the person opposite had? I mean, so I totally see it, and it's something I've done. And I know for a fact when I go on the donut tour in Chicago, I'll be sneaking back the following day to have a second one of my favorite donut.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff said last week that people go back 3 times in a trip to Chicago. So that's what we hope to happen here too. So yeah, if that data is out there, I'd love to get some stats.
And I wonder if there's any way you could generate that data where, you would say to your guests, hey, if any of you go back to any of these restaurants, can you let us know? Like, I don't know how you would do it, but, so at least you could go back to these restaurants, and say, well, other restaurants are experiencing this when we bring guests in. Like, you really are missing out because 30% of our guests are going back the following day to have a full meal.
Yeah, we could definitely start doing that.
Just think it's easier to convince with the actual numbers rather than, it seems to me they're just not going to shift their mentality. And that's a blocker. Yeah. And it's one of the things I always did in sales. It's that gap between, what they're doing now versus the future outcome. Their future outcome is, they want more business. They want more people at the tables. Well, you give them an opportunity to get there, but they're not moving past where they are today. So clearly there's something that they don't understand, or they're just not prepared to understand sometimes.
Right. Correct.
So you also mentioned that 44% of your business is from the corporate market. First of all, is that something you just looked through all your bookings and you assessed, or was it a survey? How did you get the data for that?
I did the look through the bookings and kind of analyzed where our business was coming from. We keep track of every booking on a spreadsheet so we can analyze things in a lot of different ways. But yeah, that was a realization, and it continues to be that or a little bit higher. We've done, custom corporate groups from 8 to 200. So it's definitely been a good part of our business. And, we're involved in the local Chamber of Commerce, which has given us a lot of connections as well.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering again, and forgive me if I keep kind of, going over this point, but that's also something in your sales arsenal for some of these restaurants that don't want to work with you, where, you're saying, hey, we're getting corporate bookings, and these guys definitely are always looking for good restaurants for team events or client events, client meetings. I mean, I wonder if there's some data there. Did you share with them about your data on your corporate clients?
We didn't. We could certainly do that. And the other stat we do know is about 97, 98% of the time that even local guests have not been to the venues we take them to. So those are local people getting exposed to places they hadn't been to before.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful data,
Yeah.
In terms of trying, that's if you want these restaurants. If you're happy with the ones who are working with you now, it's fine, right? Because they're helping you. If there's ones that you really wish you had on the tour, I think you saying to them that, hey, 44% of our bookings are from the corporate world, that there's a lot of future potential here. Maybe these people haven't eaten in your restaurant before.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to be working on a pitch this afternoon.
Never miss an episode of the show. Subscribe at tourpreneur.com/subscribe.
So in terms of OTA listings, how does that, because you were saying earlier that Viator didn't let you on the system. How does that look for you now?
So now in the Omaha market, we are, last I checked, I should say, we are the only people on TripAdvisor, Expedia, and Airbnb. So when we acquired Nebraska Tour Company, we were able to get on Viator, which then has become a lot more easy to use under TripAdvisor. And that is where most of our smaller team bookings come from. We no longer run Google Ads because the SEO in our site is strong and we get business from the OTAs. So we concentrate marketing efforts on corporate. So we then, after TripAdvisor, signed up and are now listed on Expedia, Local Expert, which has also given us some bookings, definitely by far number 2. And then Airbnb is a little bit more challenging to get on, but I had booked an Airbnb for a friend of mine in the city, and in their confirmation email, there was actually a line that said, check out these local experiences, and it was blank below that. So we decided to jump on that opportunity. And so now on every confirmation email that goes out in the city for an Airbnb booking, we are listed, our tours are listed.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And Matt, you might be able to help me with something here, because I haven't worked with Airbnb Experiences. Someone was telling me they had an exclusivity clause where you could only offer your tours or experiences to Airbnb clients. Is that correct, or did I?
So I am not aware of that. They do have it set up that you are a person, right? Because that's their model, a host with the guests. You are a person offering the guests an experience with me. Now, I did talk to them, and they are aware that we are a company and our hosts may rotate. I just had to put a disclaimer in the description that the host may be me or one of my friends, and we are able to be listed on there.
You come from the corporate world, so I believe you were at JCPenney for quite some time.
Correct. Worked at a lot of corporate retailers.
So what do you think are the major differences between working for a corporate retailer and now being a tourpreneur in chief?
The fact that I can react quickly to things that we learn. That is the absolute biggest change. In a corporate climate, you have to have meetings, and the meetings may happen multiple weeks or even months before any change is made. And, I can discover stats and realize what's coming because I'm talking to guests or emailing with guests. We do have a board of directors now that I work with, and so we can discuss those things honestly at any moment and make changes to pricing, content, how we present things within an hour, right?
That is a big difference there. You can be agile.
Exactly.
But then you don't have the big resources, right? So you don't have the marketing behind you that you had in your previous roles. So, that first year, how did you go about getting the word out that there was a new tour in town?
That first year, we did use Google Ads to start getting some notoriety and start improving our ranking, and then constantly work to improve search engine optimization on the site as well. We had a summer intern from a local university that we worked with, and his big project was SEO.
And would you have tips for Google Ads and SEO for people who are starting out, right, that just don't know this world at all? What tips would you have for a tourpreneur who's just starting out?
I was lucky because I had digital marketing website experience from my corporate life. Mm-hmm. So I did. It is Google Ads is a pretty confusing thing just to start. But honestly, YouTube, if there were things I wasn't exactly sure how to accomplish, there's some great YouTube series out there that get people started. I listen to a lot of podcasts, probably too many, because you can hear a lot of different opinions and be going in too many different ways. But that did help me. And those are probably the two best resources.
And are there any podcasts on this subject of digital marketing that really stand out for you, Alan?
Probably the most realistic, and Tyler Ferguson is involved in the tourism community. He does tourism and hospitality. It's called Casual Fridays. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of good content, not just about our market, but he's pretty realistic and down to earth, and I understand what he's talking about. There's other people that I listen to that are kind of over my head, but every once in a while I pick out a tidbit. But Casual Fridays is probably the best.
That's the good one to start with. And I hear you about YouTube. I mean, even, the Tourpreneur website, it doesn't look the best, but, I built it myself. And, I use YouTube to learn how to use WordPress. And it's just, I was saying to somebody the other day how lucky we are in this day and age that we have so much knowledge at our fingertips. And also we have technical challenges, as you and I know,
yes,
through the software we're using to record this. We've had a couple of hiccups, but I'm also, I'm learning German, and just to be able to put YouTube on and watch a movie in German or a TV show or the news, all these things that we didn't have, 15 years or so years ago. Very, very lucky. And especially with teaching ourselves the digital marketing side, because like you say, there is so much. It's a bit like weight loss. Everyone's got an opinion on it. And you got to work it out for yourself. So we are very lucky with YouTube. Let's talk about a nightmare situation you faced, a difficult situation you faced, and how you overcame it.
So the nightmare I can think of is when we changed our LLC name to America Tour Company as of January 1st, we had to change a bank account. We decided to continue our mission of supporting locals. So we went to a local bank, but that was a big challenge. We had a new person that was onboarding us. She didn't know everything that she probably should have told us. It was far more paper authorizations to even have online access. What are the problems? It doesn't completely connect with QuickBooks the way we wanted it to. So there's just been a lot of changes to this day, 4 months later, that we are working through, but definitely connected with the VP of Small Business Banking, and they are very interested in serving the small businesses. So we are actually a kind of a poster child for them, and work with them to understand what the challenges are so that they can quickly try to fix some of them. And many of them have been fixed, and some of them we're still working on.
And you were saying that you were persistent. So I take it you didn't get to speak to the VP of Small Business Banking right away? That
is true. It did take quite a few emails to different people in the bank trying to get to the right person. I got to say, at this bank, if there's any challenge you present to one of the bankers, you do get an email back from the Office of the President. So that helped me try to connect with the right person.
Sure. And you were saying that you decided to change banks to uphold, your mission. Can you share more about your mission as a business with us?
Yeah, our mission is to connect people to share the local stories of our community. Key point in that for us is local. Like I mentioned before, we only work with venues that are locally owned with a local chef. And on the history side, we're talking about the local history. All of our tour hosts are local to the communities that we are in, and it just felt like instead of being with a national bank, we should be with a local bank. And we're lucky enough to have a very, very big local bank here, so that's good.
And looking at your website right now, so you were saying you started off with Wix. I mean, this is a beautiful website. Is it still something you built yourselves, or did you outsource it?
It is still on Wix, and it is still completely done by me. That's the other really good thing, I guess, in today's world and being a solopreneur is I'm talking to guests. I had a guest the other day that the way I have something laid out on a tour page, she didn't know there was more information below, so she was asking that question. Well, then I know that I need to go change the layout to better present what we're showing to the guests.
Yeah, and it's good that you're listening. I mean, I'm just on the Nebraska tourcompany.com page in front of me here, and I like how immediately you have 3 ways to tour: self-guided, walking, and chauffeured. So I immediately know what you're offering. In terms of the self-guided tours, how does that work?
So we just launched that a couple weeks ago, and on May 7th is Tourism Day. We're going to be doing a press launch in both cities for that. Guests can go pay. It is a $19 price for their entire group for 24 hours. Pages are built on our website, so they basically get emailed a code that gives them access to the page. It gives them step-by-step path going to each spot that they're visiting. It gives them information about it. It gives them historic photos for the historic tours as well as a current photo. So it's really just one thing we heard from our visitor center, who we work very closely with, was that people were interested in our tours, but because on a culinary tour we can't, and we're doing it custom, we can't do it immediately, or we may not have one already booked that night. So we have a little bit of a lead time because of the way we operate. So this is an opportunity for them to offer something to people that are looking to tour, and they may be looking for something to do this afternoon.
Sure. No, I understand. We'll get on to booking in a moment. I would say, and again, it seems like weight loss and marketing. There are lots of different opinions. When I look at this page, I would love it. I really like your 4 reasons to choose us images and your reasons. Maybe that should be above the fold.
That's very interesting because a publicity person I talked to told me to move it down.
See? So you're going to have to do that thing called A/B testing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I did at the top.
Yeah, and I mean, my thinking on that, and I'm not saying that your PR person is wrong here at all. I just think when I land on a website, if I don't know the company, I generally will click the about us and read about them, etc. But, having something that, because I don't think what you've written there is like, we're the best in the state. You've actually been quite respectful here in the way, just 4 reasons to choose this, what you offer. I kind of like it, to be honest, but.
I appreciate that. We'll look at moving it again.
No. Don't do it on my say so. But
I'll do some more testing.
Yeah, maybe an A/B test would be fun.
Did you know every weekday Shane curates the most interesting news articles in tours and activities and sends them out in a snappy daily digest? Grab your copy of the Tourpreneur Daily Briefing at www.tourpreneur.com.
I wanted to ask you about online booking. So what platforms are you using to take the online booking?
We are on our third one. As we kind of alluded to, we're self-funded, so we don't have a ton of money to go do a big platform. So I used a couple small ones, but we have settled on Bookeo, which has been perfect for us. And it was very, very easy to set up and has just presented a far better way for our guests to book. And I used to have to be the in-between person and send them an invoice. I don't have to do that anymore. So been very, very happy with what they do. I did interview many of the other booking platforms. Some of them charge a percentage to the guest. That is not something we want to do. We absorb any Bookeo fee that is there, which is basically we pay a monthly charge instead of per tour charge. So overall, we just felt it was better for us trying to be in a competitive price market.
So when you were shopping around for a partner, a platform partner, what were your top 3 things you were looking for other than what you were just saying on the finances? So what else were you looking for in the kind of perfect partner for your business?
Being able to integrate a Book Now button onto our site, having flexibility in the back end to be able to add tours, update tours very easily. That was a big one. And because the big one was because we were now operating in 2 states with 2 different identities, they needed to be able to have different look and feel to each of the sites. So our color in Nebraska is red and our color in Iowa is green. So those focus colors are different on the booking platforms based on which state you visit through.
Right. And they were able to accommodate that on the back end rather than, I guess, other providers would be like, no, you have to have the same branding for each account. Neat. Right. I must confess that I hadn't heard of Bookeo until we got talking, and looking at their website, they say they've processed 39 million bookings, $3.2 billion in payments processed. So I should know about them because they sound like they're doing some great business.
And another thing when I talk to, because Fair Harbor has been a favorite on this show, and still going to talk to them when I'm at Arrival. But one of my concerns was I am not sure about going with a platform that is owned by an OTA, because then there could be changes and you have all of your data in one place. And what if they decide to prioritize you one way, de-emphasize you another way, or only allow certain tours on their OTA? Those are some of my concerns. And I was just going to say I have talked to our rep, and she has told me that especially Fair Harbor has a pretty good agreement with their parent company that they can't do things like that, but you never know what the future holds. But like I said, I'll talk to them at Arrival.
Yeah,
but I'm certainly not going to jump again.
Yeah,
right now.
Well, it's a lot of work, right, to move everything over. It's really got to be worth your while. And in terms of Fair Harbor, I will, as I said, I think last week, it's just not by design that nearly every tourpreneur we've interviewed has used Fair Harbor. I think it's just a reflection of how the market is out there right now, where Fair Harbor are very dominant in this space. And I did speak to some of the Fair Harbor people recently, and we're going to put an episode together where, I hope to speak to some of their directors, their heads of customer services, their tech people, their salespeople, and, really find out more about their business. And then, of course, speak to customers about what they think about working with Fair Harbor and what they like. And it's a series that I want to do with all, I can't do 50 plus of them, but say Bookeo, right, for instance, I would love to have them on the show and offer everyone an opportunity to showcase what they offer to tourpreneurs, because I take my hat off to you. When I was at Arrival Berlin, I think Douglas Quinby said this, there was 50 plus booking platforms at Arrival in Berlin. And I just think, wow, when it's such an important part of your business, and when you're shopping around, that there is a lot of choice out there. And I think it can be quite confusing. So that's a series we want to bring onto the show, because I feel it would be helpful for tourpreneurs like yourself, to tune in and listen. And, please do send me in your questions, what you'd like me to ask Fair Harbor or Peak or Resdy or Palacis or Treksoft, and the list goes on. But I think it's important. And how long have you been working with Bookeo?
Bookeo started January 1st for us this year when we made the corporate name change.
They have an Australian HQ, so they're Aussies. There you go.
And so you don't get to talk to any customer service person on the phone. However, I will say their email customer service response is excellent. Today, I got an answer back within 10 minutes, and including screen grabs of what I needed to do. I've been completely happy with service as I learned the new system. And
talking about productivity, so what about systems on the back end? I mean, you mentioned QuickBooks earlier on. What are you using to keep your business efficient?
We use QuickBooks. Trying to think what else. I use a lot of Google tools, Google Search Console, Google Analytics, Google Ads now, again, that we're launching Iowa. So those are the main ones we use. And then obviously all the OTAs.
Sure. And what about books? Are there any books you listen to that you have felt have really helped you in your business, Alan?
Probably the biggest one is The Magic of Thinking Big. And I had read that as I was kind of beginning this journey. That really helped me give me the inspiration to think bigger and think positive and figure out that I can make this work.
Yeah, by David J. Schwartz.
Right.
I started reading that one about 2 years ago, and then I got distracted, but I recently added it to my Audible because I do consume a lot of books by listening these days. Working from home, I need to get my 10,000 steps in. So I'll listen to a book and podcasts, of course. And I remember being quite intrigued by it. So I'll definitely check that one out again on your recommendation, Alan.
And podcast for me is just almost a daily thing. So I mentioned Casual Fridays. I did forget one. There's called SEO Bits. That's a really short podcast that gives you some insight on things you could be looking at from the SEO standpoint. There's a Google Ads podcast called Paid Search Podcast. Chris Schaefer. That one's a little bit over your head if you're beginning, but we actually worked with Chris Schaefer to kind of help guide our Google Ads as well. And my big one that I just love listening to the stories on is Masters of Scale with Reid Hoffman. Yeah. That is probably one of my favorites.
That's a phenomenal production, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I would add to that one, if you're not listening to it already, one that inspires me is How I Built This.
Okay, I'll add that to my list.
In fact, Miranda, who was on one of her earlier episodes, she put me onto it, and I've been it's fantastic. The only thing is, and I'm sure you get the same way in your business. I listen to that show, and it's whole. He interviews the founders of Airbnb, Whole Foods, the couple that started Lonely Planet in the 70s. And it's good because it's only about a 45-minute listen, but they narrate it, with the sound effects and the music. And I just listen to that and think, yeah, one day that's what I want Tourpreneur to sound like, but I don't have the 10 grand an episode budget yet.
Right.
But that's what I would love to sound like. But it's very inspiring. And it's one of those podcasts that you can pick and choose, of course, the episodes based on your own interest. But I think you'll enjoy that one as well.
Great, I'll listen.
Want to connect with other tourpreneurs? Then join our Facebook group at tourpreneur.com/Facebook.
So how do you're so busy, so you've got Nebraska, you've got Iowa. How do you achieve a work-life balance?
That is a challenge because on top of the companies, I'm on our most historic district here in Omaha is the Old Market. So I'm on the board of directors there and marketing director for them, and working with our Greater Omaha Chamber to launch a small business council to better service the needs of small businesses. So life can be pretty busy. Honestly, I just have to make time for myself. I wake up and I go directly to the gym, wake up at 5 a.m. Then I meditate, get some work done, and kind of do a little bit more activity, maybe a workout in the evening as well. And then just, for me, I have to go out and try new restaurants and bars. That's my job.
That's why you have to work out twice a day, right?
Exactly.
No, that's impressive. And the meditation, is that something you've been doing for a while, or?
I would say since I started this company, for about a year and a half.
Wow. And how did you get started with that?
Encouragement from my daughter, who's a little bit more into those holistic things. So she suggested that I do that to kind of keep things balanced. And so I honestly, I use Calm, which I just heard today is the #1 health app. And it's got a lot of great content.
I'll have to check it out because I tried Headspace for a while, and I'm one of these people, I know plenty of tourpreneurs who meditate and they say it's a game changer. And I've tried it, but I can't sit still for 10 minutes. Can't.
That's the whole point. You got to learn to be able to just focus on yourself.
True. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Alan. I'm really excited to meet you at Arrival later this year in Orlando and to hear how this year has been for you. And I hope we can talk to you next year and you can tell us a lot more about your expansion into Iowa, what you've learned, and tips and strategies that you think will benefit our tourpreneurs.
Sounds great. I appreciate you having me on.
Brilliant stuff. Where can people find you online?
The website is americatourcompany.com, which has links to both states that we operate in.
Yeah, this is a smart looking site as well. Is this Wix again?
Yes, it is.
Do you know, I'm really, really impressed. This looks, wow.
Thank you.
Excellent stuff. You've got everything there, all your social links. So, and I have been to, I was trying to work this out the other day. Yeah, I've been to 32 states. So I'm getting there, but I have not been to Nebraska and Iowa yet. So that's going to be on the bucket list.
I will encourage you to come visit Omaha. Livability magazine rated it as a top dining destination in America.
Wow. And what were the reasons behind that?
We just have a very, very strong local chef community. They've kind of been growing up since 2005, 2008. Working in different kitchens, and now they are at the point they're opening their own restaurants. And so we've got some really great, unique places with top quality food.
Fantastic. Well, I will definitely look that up because my goal is to get to every single state. So I will be there at some point. I'll have to, all the tourpreneurs that I'm chatting to, I definitely want to come and experience all the tours.
Sounds great. I look forward to hosting you.
And a big thank you to Alan Rust for coming on to Tourpreneur Episode 8 and for being an early supporter of ours and sharing his tourpreneurial journey with all of us. Here's my 3 takeaways. Number 1, don't follow the crowd. What impresses me about Alan is even though he's listened to every single episode of Tourpreneur, he's working with Bookeo and he's happy with Bookeo. And it would be very easy for him to say, oh, well, everyone on Tourpreneur is pretty much using FareHarbor. I'm going to jump ship and join FareHarbor. No, he's gone out with his criteria of what he wants. And this is my second takeaway, actually, is he had his criteria. He had his list of things that he needed from his booking platform provider. And, he shopped with that in mind. And I think that's really important. So takeaway number 1, don't always follow the crowd. Be bold. And also with his business, he went out and bought a history tour company 6 months in, which is something probably most of us probably wouldn't do in our first 6 months of business. He also, the guests can book the times of the tour. I know we can't all do that because of logistics, but again, it just shows that he's trying to be a bit bold. Second takeaway, he has his checklist of his shopping list, if you will, when he's looking for his booking platform provider. And there are so many of them out there. I heard the figure the other day, 150 plus, and I'd never heard of Bookeo, as I said in the show. So third, sales. Now, I'm going to be honest, sales is a passion of mine. I've been selling since I was 16 years of age. And sales is a profession, a trade, and a craft that I'm very proud of. And of course, it's right down there with journalism and being a politician, right, in terms of the way it's portrayed on television and in the media. But I'm proud of being a salesperson. And I'm proud because whenever I went into a pitch, I always asked a ton of discovery questions. And always what I wanted to find out was, what's the outcome here? What does this business need? What are they looking for? And I think, well, what Alan was saying with some of the restaurants that don't want to work with him because they want people going in there and spending more on their meals and drinks. In Alan's shoes, obviously you find that out. And then it's like, okay, what stats have I got here that can help that business reach that future outcome? And you heard me suggest to Alan, hey, if 44% of your business is corporate, I would totally be saying to the restaurant, hey, are you looking for more corporate bookings? Well, yeah, of course. Well, 44% of the people who take a tour with us are actually corporate bookings. And we all know, and I know this from my time at Get Your Guide and at Booking.com, finding a restaurant for a customer, a VIP customer was important, or a big team event, or you wanted to recognize one of your colleagues. So I would definitely use that. And I think Alan's going to do that and use that 44% because that helps that business reach their future outcome. There's a book I can recommend on this for those of you who are interested in this subject of what's called gap selling. His name is Keenan, K-E-E-N-A-N. I'll drop a link in the show notes, which you can find at tourpreneur.com/8. And he talks about this. This is his thing, gap selling. And highly recommend the book. Great. 3 takeaways there for you. And there's plenty more in this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. I would love to ask you one favor. Please, can you recommend Tourpreneur to one colleague, one member of your network, somebody in the tour world that would really enjoy these episodes and these shows? I would really love it if you could do that for me and help me grow this show, because I know from the emails I've received over the last 2 weeks, it's not all sunshine, is it, in our world? And sometimes we do need to get that fire back in our belly, or, we're having a rough day and it's great to hear someone else having success on the podcast, or more so facing the same challenges that we're facing, because I know it can be quite a lonely profession. So I'd love it if you could share it. If you've got ideas of guests you want to hear on the show, go to tourpreneur.com. You can find my contact details there. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. This is your show. I want to interview all the people that you want to hear from to bring you the stories from tourpreneurs. Until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Tourpreneur podcast. Be sure to visit tourpreneur.com to join the conversation and access the show notes, including links to the resources mentioned on today's episode. This is Tourpreneur.